Bank with us this afternoon. And can you hear us, Carter? Can you hear me?
Yes, how you doing today? Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
Yes, yeah, of course. And as many of you know, Republic Bank, one of our partners, you've seen them at the Tax Fest, you see them across the different shows across the country, and we wanted to invite them over because a lot of clients have been getting, a lot of members have been asking us to connect them with their banking partners to answer questions about the economic stimulus payments. And a couple of days ago, we had Roger from Refundo, and today we have Carter, Republic Bank, and we're looking to reach out to everybody. And so we are very thankful that Carter has said yes, and he's here with us this afternoon. So I love it. Carter, it looks like you have a presentation for us.
Yes, I figured it would be easier with some of the questions to be able to see it. Sometimes talk fast, so I just want to make sure that information is out there and get everybody's questions answered and people feeling comfortable about the process with the public.
Got it, got it. And I'll be controlling the slides, so whenever we're ready, we can kick it off.
All right. Sorry, that was just to make people smile. So it was a really difficult time. It's unprecedented in our nation's history. We know that a lot of people are impacted by the circumstance, and based on that, what's occurred has happened quickly and much to our surprise. And so I want to talk a little bit about what's occurred and then how Republic Bank is handling it, and then any questions that we have as well. Okay, so the first slide, thanks, Tony. It's important to remember the vast majority of taxpayers are still going to receive their economic impact payment directly from the IRS and Treasury. Okay, so for what has come through the banks is a relatively small percent relative to the total amount that they're going to be sending out. So for Republic Bank, only about 6% of our bank product customers have had their payment routed through to us. It is a larger number than you'd expect, but it is by no means the lion's share of what's to be sent. Now, for taxpayers trying to determine, or preparers helping taxpayers trying to determine who that is, these customers can easily be identified by going to the Get My Payment tool the IRS has set up that went live yesterday, or actually possibly 2 days ago. I think they got it up 2 days early. And for Republic, they'll see the last 3 digits of their social, primary social, and a 0. If in the instance they see that, then they know that it's come to Republic Bank. At that point, they would assume that the rest of what I'm going to go through would apply to them. Okay. Now, we don't have any specific information as to when the remaining payments will be released, but we are confident that the IRS is attempting to get all these funds out as quickly as possible. We received an unprecedented amount of calls from our traditional customers because, as you know, many people have this set as direct deposit to their account, and working for a bank, they are having that also deposited in their bank account with Republic, as well as TRS taxpayers and offices. So we ask for you to be patient with us because we expect to continue to have extended wait times for the next several days. So try to leverage our online tools and read the communications that we provide to have better access to find what you need without expecting to call someone and get them on the phone, because if you think of the volume of what's occurred and the amount of people available, using your tools is going to be more efficient than trying to pick up the phone and get someone on the phone to explain every time. Okay? Tony, if you could hit the next one.
Yeah.
The amount of people available, using your tools.
Perfect. Did you see that slide change there, Carter?
Yes, thank you. So the funds sent to us for stimulus payments, they did not have any special code or indicator. Okay, so there was nothing to discern stimulus money from tax refund money that we received. So we're using the standard stimulus payment amount to differentiate stimulus payments from tax refunds. And some customers will be receiving stimulus payments in a non-standard amount due to income phase-out or possible offsets. There was child support removed, for one thing. And, based on what your AGI is, your filing status, and your dependents, There were phase-out levels where every $100 it reduced by $500, but the amounts vary greatly. They're not very simply $1,200, $1,700, $2,200. Those amounts are there as well, but it will be surprising to you that some of the amounts you see are the actual amounts of the stimulus that were received by the taxpayer, but not always what you would expect to see. So Republic Bank is sending out these stimulus amounts received with no fees being assessed. If any one of your taxpayers asks about what they received and presume that that amount is not the amount of their stimulus down to the penny, they are incorrect. Republic has chose to accept the burden of expense to get this out to taxpayers because we believe that that was the way it was intended. This is to help in a difficult time. We wanted to help to get out quickly, and we wanted to have nothing lost in translation in terms of what was expected to get to the taxpayer. And in an effort to minimize person-to-person contact, and with the current volume of tax offices shut down, Republic Bank determined the most responsible solution was to print the checks and mail it to the current taxpayer bank application mailing address on file for the season. So assuming that you filed a product in the current year, there's a bank application on file, we use the taxpayer's bank application mailing address to mail this season. Now, ideally, these payments would have been issued directly to taxpayers from the IRS Treasury, and we recognize that for some tax offices and their customers, the process described above was not ideal for their specific situation. However, in this unprecedented situation, we have chosen to proceed with the option that will get these much-needed funds out to the majority of customers as quickly as possible despite the additional expense incurred. I mean, we've gotten a lot of questions about, well, why couldn't you just direct deposit to the taxpayer accounts or let me print the checks? As far as printing the checks, the issue with that is the contact and us trying to be responsible. In terms of direct deposits going to your account, processing through our system would try to remove fees from the stimulus amount, and our desire was, in sending these out in checks, was it being the exact amount of the stimulus, because again, we are not charging a fee of any sort. It is not applying to taxpayer fees, loans, or a processing fee for doing so.
Got it. Carter, because right now your system is designed to, if it's a direct deposit, to take out the fees, right? But you don't want to do that. You're just doing direct checks. So they could get it.
Right, and the reality is if we had more time, then it's possible that we could have worked to design something that would be more efficient in getting it out faster. But based on the time frame in which this happens and the amount of notice that we had, that's not an easy thing to undertake without creating an undue amount of stress for the taxpayer, tax preparer, or what could potentially happen, right? So this was the most responsible choice for us to do.
Got it. I love it. Sounds good.
Can you hit the next slide, sir?
Yeah.
So a couple things we've been getting questions about. The biggest potential issue we expect to encounter are customers who no longer have access to receive mail at the mailing address submitted on their current year bank application. Let's face it, a lot of taxpayers move, or they're using an address that's not their own. There's a couple different ways to go about to, try to resolve this, considering the check's in transit or it gets there and comes back. So if you go to the USPS website and change your address so that your mail is forwarded to your new address, that is a solution for you. Considering that the check would be on its way, you get that in time, then you have the ability to change the address to get the mail at the other location. That seems to be the easiest answer depending on the time frame in which you do so. The alternative, but is more labor intensive in terms of how many of these we have and the available staff we have to process it, getting it through as fast as we can, is to submit a taxpayer maintenance form with supporting documentation, plus a check, if a check has been issued, a stop payment form. Because keep in mind, if the check's in transit, we have to do a stop payment on it, wait 5 days to make sure that check hasn't cleared before we can void it to reissue it with an updated address. If the check is in hand, we can void it and use a taxpayer maintenance form to correct the address information to send it out to the correct address. These forms can be found by the preparer by logging into the TIC and going to support and downloadable forms. By the taxpayer, if they go into republictaxpayer.com, we've also made it available for them, because sometimes the easiest thing to do is submit that on behalf of yourself. Okay? Now, we ask that you keep in mind as well that our customer support hours, During this time of year, it's tending to slow down for us, so we did not expect this to occur. So our normal customer support hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're experiencing very high call volume for this time of year, and certain times of day, the wait times are higher than and longer than what we do are usual. Most customers and tax office are calling to find out about their stimulus payments, as you'd imagine. Please attempt to use your online tools and the communications that we provided to you to help educate yourself about your issue and find out the status. And I'll talk a little bit more about those here in a minute. And then feel free to go to the IRS website with the up-to-date information at the website provided there as well. You want to keep track of what the IRS is communicating to you. They're being very good at communicating in real time and keeping you up to date with the information that's out there.
Perfect. And Carter, I don't know if we're going to cover this, but we noticed that a lot of taxpayers go to the IRS portal and they notice that there's a banking account number that's not theirs, and then they go confront the tax professional. What do you recommend that the tax pro should do in those scenarios?
Well, the hard part is for most taxpayers, getting their money is an imminent thing. They know that they don't have their money and the account listed isn't their own. So the assumption for them is that that money went into their tax preparer's account, and that's not the case. These are pass-through accounts, temporary accounts that are created for taxpayers to disseminate fees and then issue the taxpayer their proceeds of their refund, less those fees, to whatever disbursement method they requested, which is usually a Walmart direct-to-cash, a net spend card, a direct deposit, or a check. So the bank serves as the intermediary, right? So these taxpayers see it and they think that's their preparers, and it's not. So for the preparer, the best solution is to say, you processed a bank product through me. In order to have the fees removed, that goes to the bank prior to being issued to you. So with these, it was not the intention, but they believe that to be the UBA or the ultimate bank account for which it would arrive with you. It didn't. It went to my bank. So my bank is printing a check and mailing it to the address on the application. At that point, if the address becomes an issue, then they provide other circumstances. But all they can do is educate the client. Now, the reality is, I've seen what's going out there. I've heard it. I've been on 150 calls in the past 2 days. Taxpayers don't understand why you can't give them their money right then. But the benefit we feel from this is that what we chose to do was try to make the quickest solution to get it in their hands. Now, we hope to have all the checks out by tomorrow afternoon. We started on Tuesday. Based on what we received and what our shipping facility is possible, we believe that by tomorrow afternoon, all these checks will be out mailed to taxpayers. So ideally, checks would start hitting people next week. And once that occurs, some of the roar dies down because people are getting checks in the mail, so what they're saying is true. But part of the unfortunate circumstance of this, you can tell them exactly what's occurring, and they still have difficulty in hearing it. That's just the unfortunate part of this.
Got it. And then just to reiterate, so it doesn't matter how the taxpayer did the bank product, whether they did a direct deposit, check in the office, or a debit card, everyone's getting a check in the mail, right?
That is correct. We flipped them all to check and mailed them to the address for the taxpayer bank application for the mailing address for the current year bank application.
Got it. And that makes a lot of sense because what tax or EROs, tax professionals, they're looking to give their clients an answer, any answer. And so now by you guys having a plan, you're enabling the EROs to have an answer for their clients. And the answer is, hey, the check's in the mail. It's in the mail. I have your answer. Because the worst thing is saying, I don't know. I don't know what happened. And I was looking at some videos from the past couple of days, and that's because there was so much confusion. And then when you tell a client who needs their money, I don't know, that's bad, right? And I think that's what kind of led to the chaos. But so it's great that you guys have a plan in place.
Well, and here's what we knew. The intention of this was to get the money to them as soon as possible, and ultimately, ideally, without assessing any fees. Republic was in the position to do that, but the alternative was send this back to the IRS/Treasury, and it could take some period of time to get back for them. I won't speculate as to that period of time, but what I will say is for us, we thought, even though this may not be the preference for every client, that this was the best solution to try to get it to them as quickly possible as having received the money. So that's the choice we made, feeling like that was the best solution we had, because the alternatives seemed to be more challenging.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Perfect. Go to the next slide here.
All right. So let's be honest. In your tax offices, sometimes you're only one person or two people, or the reality is your office is closed because you're in a hot spot and you're, really can't have people gather. The way you're interacting is limited, so you only have so many hours in the day, can only talk to so many people. So our effort was to also communicate with taxpayers to provide them more information. So we sent an email to taxpayers. That is the content of the email there. I won't read that to you. This was recorded. You can go back and read it. But basically what it says is it explains about EIP and the CARES Act and what the intention of it was, how we received the funds, and then how we're choosing to process those. It's telling the taxpayer how to identify that the money did come to Republic, and then it's, trying to set the expectation for using the tools like republictaxpayer.com, because we only have so many people answering the phones based on the amount of calls coming in. As you can imagine, this all happening at once, normally people are calling over a period of time. With this all hitting at once, everybody's trying to call at once. So we're trying to educate the taxpayer. Now, based on the email addresses and text messages we have, we believe we reached about 77% of the taxpayers, because let's face it, there's email addresses and cell phones that aren't correct. But at least what we're trying to do is minimize the burden for the preparer by helping communicate to have them better understand, because there's a state of panic, right? So that's essentially what that email is, and that email is pertaining to taxpayers whose check was printed and mailed to them.
Got it. And that kind of speaks to the bigger question, Carter. Do you think that there needs to be more education between the ERO and the client on what a bank product is, how it works, how it functions? Is that part of it? I know that's not at fault, but do you think there's a small factor of that involved in?
So, I try not to speak in absolutes, because there's a difference in every circumstance. I fully believe that there are a large percentage of taxpayers that know exactly how a bank product works right now. But the fact that they see that money is in an account they don't have access to, what's possible is what they're questioning. Why they can't get their money right there. Why can't a check be printed or it be put in their account? That's where the confusion comes into play. Hey, you gave me my advance check or my refund transfer check. Why can't you give me my stimulus check? So it's not so much about how a bank product works in this circumstance, outside of where the direct deposit information is, because even if you explain it to them, it doesn't provide the explanation as to why they can't get what they need right then and there, right? So there's a little bit of it, but when you add panic from a pandemic into that and people, in desperate need of money, then this is what occurs. So yes, there's absolutely that case, but if every single person was educated, it still wouldn't stop some of the confusion as to why not right here, right now, right?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Awesome. See, awesome email. All right, here we go.
Okay, so text messages. We said we sent out email and text messages. We told you about the audience that we believe we reached. There were one of two text messages that went out if the EIP checks were being printed, okay, and mailed to the taxpayer. The first one was, your economic stimulus payment has been received. A check for the full amount is being printed and mailed to you at no cost. Now, keep in mind that the Treasury has not gotten these letters to taxpayers yet with the amount. So I remind you that taxpayers are going to get these checks, and they may very well question the amount on the check not being accurate for the stimulus. I can absolutely assure you that the check they receive in the mail for Republic Bank was the amount received. Some of them will have cents. They will not necessarily make sense. So you, the preparer, can take confidence in the fact that they received the entire amount of their stimulus. And so that's just trying to keep it real brief and simple in their attention with the message. The second one is, we have extremely high call volume, so please don't attempt to call support unless urgent. Stay safe and healthy. And that's the type of thing where every taxpayer wants to know if you can look up and see exactly when their check went out and the exact amount of it, because they're trying to determine how much it was and when they're going to get it. And the truth is, we aren't really providing the level of detail around the individual circumstance at this time, because based on how quickly this happened, we were trying to get it out as quickly as possible and make sure that once that process is taken care of, we're doing a better job of communicating as to what that circumstance was at an individual level, and the availability for preparers to see who it affected. Now, when they go to republictaxpayer.com and put in their own individual Social Security information, it will reflect that for them. But in terms of calling customer service or support to go through that with checks already in the mail, we also are still servicing our tax clients, our preparers for tax season. We cannot just simply shut everything down to address that for the circumstance that involves 6% of our audience, right? And then we also have a screen pop up when they go to the website for people that had been printed and mailed, and this is additional information about, their status. Letting them know that the check for the full amount was printed and mailed to them at no cost to them. Please trying to direct them to use their tools and make them aware that our call volume is high and it affects our answer times, because they just don't understand why they can't get on the phone right there, because they don't realize 4,000 people are calling. As far as they're concerned, they're the only person calling at that time. And we understand. We really do understand. We're all taxpayers. We all are. Everybody is affected by this at some level. So we get it.
Yes, yes. Now, this is awesome, Carter, because what you're doing here, it's direct communication with EROs, the tax professionals, with the taxpayers. As soon as you guys started sending out these communications, did it help? Have you noticed the call volume dropped, and was everybody more at ease?
Well, so keep in mind, this was effective on the 15th. Today's the 17th. It has not abated. I mean, the answers aren't really going to serve to help the situation until people have money in their hands. My tendency is to believe that after people start getting checks in the mail, it will abate. When you're in a state of panic, a lot of times reason goes out the window. So sure, it's helpful, but it doesn't necessarily mean because someone gets that, they don't turn right around and call because they think they're going to get through, right? It's the nature of the beast.
Got it. That makes sense. There we go. The last light.
Is that the last one?
Yeah, I did it. Unless I skipped one. Let's see. Previous. I think so. I don't know if it's the last one, but it's the next one.
What we want to say is part of the opportunity that you presented here today, too. I don't know how large the audience is today, but it gives us an opportunity to talk to people that have not yet spoken to us, because what I can tell you that has happened is, although taxpayers may not be abating, preparers are. What we've noticed is when we talk to our preparers and we tell them what's occurred, there is a sense of relief, because if they haven't checked their email, or they didn't read it thoroughly, or they just don't understand, as we're talking to preparers, they're feeling much more comfortable, but they're beat down. Preparers have lines out of their office where they're having to talk to every taxpayer before they can go home in the evening. They're having to defend that that money is not in their account, that the check is being mailed. So preparers are getting hammered in a way that they never have before, and they're really being made to blame for something that is not their fault. I mean, I'm not really placing any fault here. It's just a matter of how we can make this happen the most effectively in the shortest period of time. So what we are seeing the value in is, as we speak to more of our preparers, make them aware of what's happened, there is a comfort that's coming over them. So we really appreciate, Tony, for you and Latino Tax giving us this platform to talk to people and make them aware of what's going on, because we know this is a very difficult time. And we definitely feel for everybody, and we're doing our best to try to help with the tools that we have.
Yes, definitely. And we appreciate you coming on, Carter, to give us this. This is exactly what we're looking for. You know, as soon as this was happening a couple of days ago, we reached out to everybody, to you guys, to Refund Advantage, EPS, PPG, Refundo, River City, and we're like, hey, can you guys provide some answers? And what you just did is exactly what the members are asking us to ask you guys. So now everyone's aware of what's going on. And there is a few questions. We have over 100 people viewing right now through our social media channels, and then what's cool about this, Carter, that these videos will stay on our Facebook, so more people will see them later tonight, tomorrow, the next day, because they're still going to be spread out. So that's why it's awesome that you gave these answers. And let me there's a few comments and questions. One of the
Sure.
questions that you just addressed this, you just mentioned it earlier. What if the taxpayer needs to update their address? You said go to the USPS. Was that correct?
Well, so there's two opportunities. If they are catching this in a matter of before that the checks actually arrive the location and they do a change of address at USPS for the mail to get there and be forwarded, that works. But that does not mean that works for everything. It is a solution based on the circumstance. Alternatively, when the taxpayer goes to republictaxpayer.com, there is a taxpayer maintenance form for the taxpayer to do themselves. And the preparer can log into our TIC, go to support downloadable forms, and have that form too. But we've actually enabled the taxpayer to do it for themselves too, because the reality is in some situations, one preparer may have 100 taxpayers and they're all trying to do something at once. Now, keep in mind, this is only 6% of our audience, so it is not every taxpayer in the office. But when the taxpayer confirms the last three digits of their social and the zero to know, they could all converge on the preparer at once, so we wanted to try to provide tools for the taxpayer to be able to accomplish themselves. So, and that is one of the slides, which was the address change, yes.
Here, let me, I'm going to your website here. Let me just show everybody. This is it right here, right? republictaxpayer.com.
Correct.
Nice.
So when you log in with the taxpayer information, there's a pop-up that occurs, which was with the information, and then for their specific circumstance, it will tell them that a check had been mailed.
Got it. Got it. When you say 6% of your customer, what does that mean? Because I guess I just assumed that all your customers are bank product customers. Is that
right?
Not
so
correct,
if you think of when I talk of customers, I'm talking about taxpayers. So of the total amount of individual taxpayers that we process, 6% is what we had received prior for this, for the economic stimulus. The EIP, Economic Impact Payment.
Got it. Got it. Oh, here's a good comment. This is the first time I hear about you guys. How do you guys work? So, well, you guys are a bank processor for the tax industry, right, Carter?
Correct. So normally what our primary function is to preparers is we assist with you facilitating having your fees removed from a taxpayer's refund when they can't afford to pay you up front. We provide advances in advance of the filing season, during the filing season for preparers and taxpayers. And we also just provide the ability for taxpayers to even get loans when they can afford to pay you up front. Sometimes that's a matter of need. I mean, with the PATH Act, really a lot of the January business has been suppressed. It's moved forward because of the PATH Act. So we provide the ability for taxpayers to have access to advances sometimes desperately needed long before their refund is going to fund. But primarily, taxpayers will walk in wanting to get their return prepared and they can't afford to pay them, so we help the preparer in that circumstance so they don't have account receivables where it's, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, and they never get paid. That's the primary function that we serve.
Got it. Love it. Here's a comment. It looks like they got here late because they're asking, so all Republic Bank customers are getting their checks mailed from Republic Bank?
No. All bank product customers is an exaggeration as to the circumstance. 6% of our taxpayer base is who we receive this for. For that 6%, they are receiving a check in the mail. It's not all. Our normal disbursement methods for a tax refund processing is check, direct deposit, net spend, prepaid card, Walmart direct to cash. If EIP or stimulus came through us, we are sending those to taxpayers as a check. Not all. Tax refund process in the disbursement method the taxpayer requested.
Got it. Okay, so I guess I missed that part. So 94%, so a big majority of the Republic Bank customers, the taxpayers, their money never was sent to you. The IRS, what is the IRS doing? Are they going to send them checks directly to them, or do you know?
Well, those circumstances vary. I mean, they sent out 80 million direct deposits for those with confirmed direct deposit information, and checks will be made as well. So the Treasury will be either sending them a check or a direct deposit. But, you know, I tend not to try to speak for them outside of what I know. That's pretty basically the answer, though, is that will come from the Treasury to the taxpayer.
Got it. Oh, to the taxpayer, depending on the information that they have from the tax, from the IRS.
People need to realize the amount that's come through banks is a small percentage of what's disseminated as a whole. The smallest part of this came through the banks.
I got you. Okay, perfect. And that I'm so glad we're covering that, because there is a little bit of confusion in the comments thread here on our Latino Tax Pro Facebook, because a comment says Republic has direct deposit stimulus payments into taxpayers' accounts already. So I think that's what they're saying, is those that you didn't get, that the IRS did send payments directly to those taxpayers, even though they got a bank product through Republic Bank with direct deposit, but it looks like the IRS did the correct thing, right? And just sent it directly to that
so
account.
Keep in mind, even though we received this money, that does not mean that there weren't taxpayers that got a bank product that did not get a direct deposit from the Treasury for stimulus. But also keep in mind, what we talked about initially, because some people came on late, is there's a UBA, an ultimate bank account number. There's an account number that exists in a UBA, and based on how softwares may code that, Republic would be an account number listed on the return, but that's essentially the pass-through account. And if a refund, transfer, direct deposit is done, then that taxpayer's account would ultimately be the UBA. If in the instance that was not interpreted properly for whatever reason to assume that our account information was the taxpayer's, then the money was sent to us assuming it was going to the taxpayer. But that does not mean that there weren't many taxpayers that did get their money successfully from the Treasury. We're talking about a percentage. And let's not confuse the traditional bank product from where someone files their return and has their fees removed with stimulus. They're completely different. We have handled stimulus to send those as checks to taxpayers to their address from their bank product filed in the current year. Regular refund transfers for which people filed their return to have their fees removed are being processed through our system normally and in the disbursement method requested. Let's not mix and mingle. And it is also possible taxpayers have received direct deposits to their account from the Treasury.
Got it. Perfect. And here's a comment that's kind of cool. Sonia Montemayor said, "This bank is cool. They are taking the responsibility and mailing out what they got." Cool. That's some good kudos for you guys. And another comment here is, what is TPG doing? Yeah, so we reached out to our contacts at TPG and other banks. So as soon as we get information, we will definitely let everyone know. And yeah, that's basically. Oh, here we go. Here's another comment. From what I've seen in my office, clients who got direct deposit got their stimulus into their account. Clients with checks, some have been sent to you, I guess Republic, and some can update online. Okay, so it looks like the ROs are kind of understanding how things work, Carter. So that's cool.
Yeah, just keep in mind, regardless of the disbursement method that the taxpayer chooses, every bank product is a direct deposit because the money comes to us in order for us to disseminate. That's where, you know, we receive this money where not otherwise intended. Like, we didn't plan on this. We didn't ask for this. We're just trying to make the best situation and service our preparers and taxpayers the best we can. And for us, the best solution was to do what we did, and we think it's the right thing to do.
Perfect. And as a reminder, there is no fee that you are charging for that, right?
Correct. We are absorbing the expense of this because our belief was the intention for stimulus. It's not a function of the return that was filed this year, although they use the data from it. It is meant to help stimulate the economy and help people down on their luck. So we're in a position to not charge a processing fee, incur the expense of it. So it also makes it much easier for you, the preparer, when they get the check and they bring it in and say, this isn't the stimulus amount. You can look at them with confidence and say, yes, it is.
Yeah, got it. Perfect. So thank you so much. Again, we want to thank Carter Dempsey from Republic Bank for coming on our Facebook live show. We're streaming on multiple pages on YouTube, and you can still see this video after we jump off here. And these are the answers we were looking for. So we'll be sure to invite you again back soon. And stay safe, Carter, and good luck with all this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the time, Tony, and thank you, everybody, for taking the time to speak with us today.
Have a good one. Have a good weekend. Talk to you soon.